Your mics are not on over on that side, or I can't see them.
Microphone, Ralph. You know.
Just them ones are turning off.
Yes.
Just too bright to look at, Craig.
Good now? All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our regular public council meeting for Monday, March 31st, 2025. Here in the town of Torbay. Very first thing we need to do is appointment of acting town clerk. Can I get someone to do that motion, please?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
Motion resolved that in the absence of the town clerk, that the town of Torbay appoint Holly Walters as the acting town clerk for the March 31st, 2025 public council meeting. So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business. Councillor Tepper.
I got a thanks and a congrats.
Councillor Manning.
I'll pass.
Councillor Pollard.
Pass.
Councillor Appleby.
Thank you and congratulations too, please.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. And I got it. Thanks. Congrats. Is there anybody that wants to get on the first Q&A? Could I get your name, please?
Tim Hunt.
Tim Hunt. Okay. I'll let you know when it's fine. All right. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have public council minutes from Monday, from March 18th, 2024. Could I get a motion to adopt, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any errors or omissions? There was an error. Or
Yeah,
an
it's a
omission,
typo.
an error. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, that was on a motion that was put forward on the invoices over 5. In the voting there, it said that 4 people voted, but there was no X by Councillor Tapper's name. But I did check the video and he did actually vote. It's just it was left out on the.
That's on page 5, huh? You just had to make a note of that one.
Was he here at the last meeting?
That's probably me. Yeah, that must have been.
Okay.
So all good. It's just left out of there. That's all. It's just the type. The number is right. It's just the X was missing.
Yeah, got it.
Mayor, could I make a comment? I was not here last week because I was at the Janeway with my daughter. She was in an accident.
Okay.
So just wanted to put that on note, the record why I missed the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Conflict of interest, the little sheet is there. There's one item on it, but as always, if there's an issue comes up during the council meeting, please make sure that you raise it at that time. Proclamations. We have a proclamation for Heart Failure Awareness Week, and Councillor Tepper is going to do that.
Okay, it's not normal to be breathless. Heart Failure Awareness Week, May the 4th to the 10th, 2025. Whereas Canadian Heart Failure Awareness Week is marked across Canada to raise awareness of the causes of heart failure and the impact it has on individuals living with heart failure and their caregivers. Whereas over 800,000, that's 827,560 people, 40 years of age and older are living with heart failure in Canada, and over 120,000 people aged 40 years and older are diagnosed with heart failure in Canada. Heart failure significantly impacts individuals living with the condition, their families, caregivers, and the healthcare system, affecting over 13,000 people above the age of 40 right here in Newfoundland and Labrador. It imposes a substantial economic burden, with hospitalizations being a major cost driver. In Canada, heart failure is the third leading cause of hospitalizations. People with heart failure experience debilitating symptoms such as shortness of breath, swelling, and exhaustion, whereas people caring for those with heart failure are often overwhelmed and stressed. Whereas heart failure imposes a significant economic burden on the healthcare system, with one of the main cost drivers being hospitalizations, and heart failure is the third leading cause of hospitalizations in Canada. Whereas Heart Failure Awareness Week was initiated by the Canadian Heart Failure Society, an organization of health professionals and patients, in collaboration with Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, Canadian Cardiovascular Society, Canadian Council of Cardiovascular Nurses, Canadian Association of Cardiovascular Prevention and Rehabilitation, Canadian Heart Function Alliance, Heart Life Foundation, and Ted Rogers Centre for Heart Research. Whereas Canadian Heart Failure Awareness Week is now celebrated across Canada as a time dedicated to improving awareness and education on heart failure for people of Newfoundland and all Canadians.
Now ye know that. There's a mouthful.
Medieval.
We do by these present, proclaim, and declare that until that May 4th to the 10th shall be known as Heart Failure Awareness Week. So moved.
Second.
Comments?
I'd like to say something.
Turn your mic on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to say, personally, fully in support of this proclamation and happy that we're doing it. I'm part of heart surgery survivor thing. I'm not quite to this stuff, but I'm on the watch list for heart disease and stuff like that. So I'm certainly fully in support of this being put out there, and people need to know and listen to your bodies, get checked, and be on top of it. That's what worked for me, and it still is. Thank you.
Yep, and we're glad that you're still here with us. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, this is a really important proclamation. I lost my dad at the age of 62 to a massive heart attack. I've got a 13-year-old kid home who's followed by cardiology, with a genetic heart condition. Way too many people are stressed out to the max every day in their job, cortisol levels through the roof, not moving, sedentary at their desks, and before you know it, having trouble, your muscles are atrophying, your cardiovascular system's not functioning the way it should, people burning out. Our culture needs to have proclamations like this. There needs to be a discussion about wellness, physical wellness, just as much as we have the conversation about mental health wellness. So I think there's change that's needed. I think this is a very important topic for us to bring forward as a council, have a discussion about this, and make sure that it's known that we are leaders in this space, looking at making sure people are taking care of themselves, making sure they're doing the best they can to look after all of their well-being. So thank you, Mayor. Appreciate this. Really appreciate this coming forward. And Councillor Manning, really happy you're well. Loves our committee meetings, and we're having a grand time. So always a treat. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Q&A. Yeah. Can Tony please check to make sure his microphone is on, please? Oh, there you go. Never mind.
How's that?
Yeah.
Good. Good evening. My name is Tim Hunt, and I live on Karen Drive, with my wife Catherine and our two daughters Evelyn and Marion. We moved here from the west end of St. John's 7 years ago, and I'll say for the most part, we love living in Torbay. But we live on Karen Drive, so you know we are dealing with contaminated well water that's not safe for our family. It's something we worry about every day. So initially, I was very pleased to hear of last week's $26 million funding announcement for improved water supply infrastructure in Torbay. I have reviewed the water system servicing study that I understand the funding proposal to be based on, and a couple of points jump out at me. The report estimates that from developing Great Pond, 670 meters cubed per day of supply will be freed up at North Pond. And I see North Pond as the area that could service Pine Ridge. I also note the servicing study presents several development opportunities for the North Pond supply area, but the demand for these development opportunities exceed the 670 meters cubed per day made available through these upgrades. I also note that Pine Ridge Creek is not listed as a specific development opportunity in the study. That said, I do recognize that the study was first commissioned before the Pine Ridge wells were proven to be contaminated. Using the demand allowances noted in the servicing study, I estimate the Pine Ridge Creek and Pulpit Rock subdivisions to require between 200 and 225 meters cubed per day. Mayor Scott, my question is, will the town of Torbay reserve capacity at the North Pond water treatment plant established through this phase of funding for the residents of Pine Ridge Creek and surrounded area impacted by well contamination to ensure access to safe, reliable water is preserved for our families?
So, just a couple of points. So that study, as you point out, was commissioned a while ago, before the contaminants were known, the extent out in Pine Ridge area, and we'll use that. However, before we put in our funding application to the federal government, we did go back to them, to Wood, and ask them to revise the numbers for the cost for us to be able to, for them, obviously, to be able to supply water out that way. So those numbers with the distribution and all that kind of stuff that's in that report were done up, obviously based on the fact that we would not normally supply water and sewer to a large lot subdivision because it doesn't make any economic sense, or else, you know. So those are open to being adjusted, and our request to the federal government was for them to fund that 100%. And that the available capacity that would come from Great Pond coming on and freeing up capacity on North Pond would enable the federal government to run the pipes out to supply that subdivision. Right, Sandy?
Yep.
That was the reasoning behind the asking for 100% of the funding. So we are still communicating with the federal government. The two projects, that money that we were awarded is 75%, up to 75% of the project. So there's still a lot of work that the town has to do in order to come up with the rest of the funding and whatnot. But I guess the analogy I would use, in a perfect world, if we had lots of capacity at North Pond today at this moment, it would be an option for the federal government to be able to connect to that pond to run those pipes out to service the homes out there. Because that was the reason we requested that they pay all of the money for that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the cost to run all those pipes and to bring that water out there would be borne by the federal government. That's our contention. The last that we know, the communications that we've heard from the federal government, of course, there's an election on to go now, so it's very difficult to get any kind of answers, is that they're still exploring water treatment systems. Now, We're not really involved in that conversation because that's one that they're having with the residents, with you guys out there. But to me, and we've argued this, that the real solution is municipal water to alleviate everybody's concerns, because I've spoken to residents who are barely registering PFAS, and they are not happy with that. So I can only imagine, and I've talked to people that are upwards over the limit, people that are under the limit, and it's kind of where we're to. So to answer your question about the distribution and where it goes, we were kind of actually talking a little bit about that earlier. Depending on the circumstances, because now the circumstances have changed for us, we might be able to divert more of that capacity that's currently on North Pond to the Great Pond supply and have additional water available for that side of the town. That is your question?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just so I understand what your response. So in your revised proposal, it was to allow for extension out to service our area?
In the full cost, we included it all in the full cost because we wanted to make sure we were gonna apply for enough funding. But that was based on the federal government paying 100% of the entire thing,
Okay,
right?
okay. But and that was accepted, that was the basis of the funding announcement, was your request?
No, because when they came back with the amount, their proposal was $26.8 million or up to 75% of the total project. So with that funding, that would be enough to put Great Pond in, put the distribution system for that and connect it up. And we still have got to go back and get a lot of numbers. We're in really early stages here.
Of course.
And those estimates that we did at the time for that probably come back as a Class C or a Class D estimate, so they're plus or minus a bunch. But until we had some kind of funding secure, really limited where we could go and how far we could go. We've spent a considerable amount of money getting to this point, doing the studies for Great Pond and the fish and all these things. And to be able to come up with a reasonable number to put in for that application. So that's kind of where we're to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing at the highest level is we were considered in your application.
Yep.
And there's ability to provide capacity from the system upgrades to meet our demands.
Right. Provided the federal government decides they're gonna run those pipes and pay for it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can say it any more plain than that, really.
Yep. No,
Right.
that's clear and answers my question.
And if you want to touch base with me after, Tim, I can certainly have another conversation with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Sandy's been communicating with different branches of the federal government,
Yeah.
Transport Canada and everything along with this the whole way. So he's more, well, only for I got him to explain everything to me today, so I'm up as versed as he is now, hopefully, but because I was expecting your question tonight about that.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
Okay,
no,
thank you.
You touch base with me.
All right, moving on. Next on the agenda is, mayor's report. Mayor's report, first off, birthdays for April. Jordan Cross, Infrastructure and Public Works. David Pond, Corporate Services. Danny Kavanagh, Infrastructure and Public Works. Olivia Davis, Recreation and Community Services. Brian Windsor, Infrastructure and Public Works. And Tony Pollard, Councillor. Happy birthday, everybody. I hope you have a fun and happy and safe birthday coming up throughout the month. Don't be afraid to invite me over for a cup of tea. One other thing that I want to mention as part of my mayor's report, I do want to acknowledge, and we just alluded to it, the announcement that we had last week at the Torbay Common in terms of the federal funding announcement for us to develop a new water supply at Great Pond. I want to thank all of our staff and Minister Thompson's staff and her for all the hard work that's went into this. We have been hounding her and her predecessors, whoever came before her in that seat, and we continue. And as I just mentioned, 75% of the funding for that project was announced as part of that announcement. There's still work to do. I had a discussion with Minister Hutton on the weekend when I was in Marystown to let him know that we're going to be coming, looking for a meeting, that we're going to be looking for additional funding for this project, wherever we can get it. And I know that we've already reached out to COA, and unfortunately they don't fund that type of thing, but we've also reached out to other funding partners, and we'll see where that goes. But this is a start. It's a huge boost for us, and as we go forward, we can't take our foot off the pedal, I guess. We are in a position now where we can start to move on that project. Our other project at North Pond is moving forward, so you know, it's bright days ahead, hopefully, and it was certainly good news, but just a reminder, it's just a start. The tap is not going to be turned tomorrow, so we need to keep working. All right. Business Rising report.
Excellent segue.
Did you want to ask about the?
Excellent segue into my line of questioning. Just on that, I read the information that was presented there for the money from the federal government, and it does require a motion to council to accept that at some point in time. I don't know what our timeline is on that. I'm just wondering what plans we have in place, or what the step is moving forward to keep this front and center, and what are the next steps from our perspective?
Right now, the announcement is an approval in principle, so we have to actually sign the agreement. And part of the correspondence that I received from the federal minister was people would be in touch with us to start that process. But I will say, part of the requirement for signing the agreement is have all of our funding sources in place. So that's one of the things that we're working on diligently now. Of course, with the caveat that we're now into an election for the next month. So I'm not sure how much we're going to get from the minister's staff, but that's what we're just waiting on to hear back from them now. But we're just making sure that we're exploring all of our funding for the other 25%, I mean.
Yeah, won't that impede the time frame overall? If we're waiting for the other $8 million to bring us up to the 34,
the intent,
$35 million.
yeah, the intent is not to delay that beyond what's reasonable. We're looking at those sources right now, but if we have to move forward, as is, you know, and us funding the additional, then that's what we'll do.
Okay, because I wouldn't.
We don't want to jeopardize.
I understand the need for looking for the provincial funding, things of that nature, but certainly not to the detriment of holding off and moving forward with the existing.
Absolutely
money.
not.
If it comes to worst,
No.
worst comes to worst, we'll have to find some way to finance ourselves and move that forward, right?
No, absolutely not. We're still waiting on for the federal officials to contact us to make to arrange the signing. So it's in their court right now, but we haven't stopped. We're still proceeding.
So to your point, we know that in last budget cycle, we set aside our multi-year capital works money, right, for water? Did we?
It was for North Pond.
Yeah, okay, that was for North Pond. But in order to secure that money, like Sandy says, that if we have to, at the initial offset, guarantee it on part of the town, and then continue on pursuing additional funding options, then we'd have to do that. Rather than
Yeah, I guess the thing is to make sure we nail down that funding.
Oh yeah, no,
in
this is not going to
timeframe,
delay.
suppose, and,
Yeah.
you know, our sources ourselves, and we find some other source afterwards, then
Absolutely.
we take that and run with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
There was a resident who reached out to me with a question about the announcement, and they asked if the government were to change, would we still have access to the resources that were announced? So I'm just curious, have we reached out to other, parties to understand if they would honor that, or do we deal with that after the election, or, I'm not 100% sure how, best to make sure that the community and the residents are protected, you know, but I know when I was in Ottawa in December for the FCM meetings at that time and the advocacy days, I was there when the minister said, absolutely, if we're reelected, you know, we'll keep the money from the Housing Accelerator Fund. And then I was also there in the room when the shadow cabinet minister said, right after his presentation to the board, we will exit. It's not happening if we're elected. So I think that there's a couple of things here that would be interesting for us to follow up on. I know, Sandy, we've had the conversation with the Housing Accelerator Fund because I contacted you at that time. But also, I think it's a valid question. The resident asked if we should be, you know, asking what other parties honor that, or I don't know what the process is, or if, you know, like what that looks like. But I'll turn
It's
to
a
you
valid,
to-
it's a valid question, but
Yeah.
impossible to answer. And if I could answer that, I would be probably a very wealthy individual right now if I could predict that. Normally, this has been it's an announcement that's been made. It's an agreement. Once we get that agreement signed, we do have an approval in principle. Normally, it is honoured, but I can't predict what what a change in government would do. I have no idea. You know, we've already heard an announcement of removing the Housing Accelerator Fund, right? So we don't know how that's going to affect our position, nor do we have any idea what will happen with a change of government. It's impossible to know. We would expect, and we would lobby, and we would fight for this to be honoured by any party, tooth and nail.
Yeah.
But again, I cannot say with any certainty what the end result would be.
All right, thank you. I mean, I think it's really important, Mayor, back to your point of, you know, this is an issue that predates any election or any change or this announcement. I mean, it's something that needs to be addressed and fixed for people's, you know, health and safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask the question to follow up to see if we had any idea, if there was any, you know, action that we could take. Thank you.
So
That's-
Sandy and I talked about it today, right? And this is an agreement between the town of Torbay and the government of Canada, not the Liberal Party or not the PC Party. And it wasn't a promise of something, it was an actual announcement of an agreement that's ready to sign. So I'm sure that Sandy's gonna continue to follow up with the officials
Yeah.
in the department to find out when it is that we can get that thing signed. And then, once it's signed, then I would hope that no government would go back on it. I would hope that, you know, if, whatever happens in the election, that's out of our hands, but whatever MP that gets elected from this district would be fighting to make sure that we retain that funding.
Thank you.
So realistically, I guess the follow-up to that, both sides conversation is that we'd be best served to have the contract signed before election day.
I just
So
made a
that we
note
have
to
enough.
follow up with the feds
Right.
tomorrow. Yeah, it's a good point.
But while you're talking about this, I said, I think it's unfortunate that we haven't even met as a council since we had that funding announcement. And we need to sit down and find out what our strategy is going to be, because there's a lot of work that needs to take place and to find out this. So I think that a meeting for all of us and for, I guess, for Mayor and yourself to talk about different things, I think is important to keep us all in the loop, because I've had similar questions and that what Councillor Appleby is after having.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't know what our strategy is, and even if we have a strategy, I think right now, if we're talking about approaching the provincial government, and we haven't done that yet, and we're talking about, I think that we need to know what our plan is before we start assuming what we're going to do. And I think that maybe later this week, we should be having a discussion about all of this and bring the players in that, from a director's point of view, that are responsible for this, because no doubt we're all getting the same questions. And it's a very sensitive and delicate time now where we have so many elections taking place at one time. Because right now, none of us can be held to anything because we really don't know what the answers are to the questions we're getting. And time is of the essence.
Could I just make a point as well? No, I think now that this is in gear, hopefully. It's been a long, long while. But, you know, I was going to ask this under the flood report. We haven't heard from the consultant for months now. And I think it's timely to at least get them in for a revamp as to what progress that they've made and how far out they are, but just to give an outline of, the work they've done to date and some indication of the timeline as to, we got the money and we're, we gotta, keep this rolling as far as I'm concerned.
Well, right in there, in one of the letters that we received, it says about contacting the consultant and what we should be doing while everything else is in the works. So behind the scenes, it says that we could be doing,
Yeah.
taking action on different things, so that when it's signed, that we're ready to go with it. I mean, that's a whole paragraph in there in the attachment. And that's what I was going to bring up and interested in having some discussion on.
Yep. All right. Committee whole, no reports, no motions. Oh, hang on now, I missed correspondence. Yes, there's a municipal news correspondence there. That's the one from Heart Failures Awareness Week, for your information. It's got a list there of imminent events coming up in 2025. Talks about some of the stuff we talked about this past weekend at UMC. So that's there for your attention. Committees of Council, Planning, Land Use Development, Councillor Power.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item up on the docket here is the Crown Land referral for an area, Nathaniel Drive, and it's for Crown Land north of Eagle Ridge Drive for the extension of Phase 5 of the residential subdivision. Staff reviewed the request for that acquisition and didn't have any particular problems with it. So motion to approve Crown Land referral CL 2025-001 E163830 for the proposed acquisition of approximately 16.6 hectares of Crown land to be able to consider an application for Phase 5 Eagle Nest Landing and approximately 37 lot on-service subdivision by road extension via Eagle Ridge Drive and Nathaniel Drive west of Valley Loop Drive, subject to the conditions outlined in associated background report. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. The wetland buffering that is discussed in here, I just wanted to check, there's a part of this background information that looks at wetlands in the area and making sure the protections are there. I think it's 15-meter buffer that was noted. I just want to make sure that that's within our regulations, and I'm sure it is, but I'm wondering, I know that we've had development discussions around wetlands here and concerns about that, so I just want to make sure that we're doing what we need to make sure that, one, those wetlands are protected. And the second thing I wanted to have asked and looked at here is, and I'm sure it's being done, but I just want to put it on record, that, we're looking at, if we're developing up in that area, that we're thinking about what the impacts would be down in Skipper's Landing and those areas in Forest Landing. We've had concerns about, flooding down there. We've spent a significant amount of money to address those issues and stuff. So I just wanted to ask if we could get some updates on making sure that we're protecting those wetlands and what's in that area if we do approve this, and then making sure that we know things are all in place if the developments do happen, to make sure that the impacts to anything downstream are being mitigated, please.
So to answer your second question first, all developments are now subject to meeting storm detention requirements, and that particular area actually drains the other way. So it's kind of just past the majority of it past the ridge and drains the other way, but nonetheless there will be storm and zero net runoff requirements that will need to be met, but it's not going down to Skipper's Landing. And second of all, there is a fairly large wetland complex in the area, but that's not located on this particular property here. It's a smaller, like the beginning section of that wetland associated with the river that flows through the wetland area. And we're looking at, and that's one of the requests, that the Crown reviews it and Water Resources to see if to just not transfer those wetland areas for private development, but to reserve it as crown land. And then anyways, the developer is subject to doing the floodplain delineation in any case as part of that development. So both of those things will be looked after.
Perfect, thank you, Julia.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
The next issue was the subdivision securities, and we did have some conversations with all the council last week, actually, in terms of what we accept as securities. So we did review again the various other towns in the area and some of the impacts. And we did find that we'll probably find the way we are now, with the exception that we will reduce the phase one requirement for the 100%. Phase one works. The other thing was, just at the end of the meeting, we did find that there was, I think, what they call a callable development bond. So we're going to do some further research into that. So while we'll put this motion forward now, there may be another motion coming later to further define, once we are satisfied, or once committee is satisfied that, or council is satisfied that the securities actually give us the security we need, type thing. So anyway, motion to accept cash deposits, certified checks, and irrevocable and automatic renewable letters of credit as accepted means for subdivision securities going forward, and to reduce the required security amounts for stage one deposits as follows. Stage one deposit will be 15% of estimated and approved stage one construction costs, while stage two deposit requirements remain the same, 100% plus 20% escalation clause, and the town committing to further reviewing development bonds for reporting back to council to then subsequently amend the subdivision and engineering guidelines based on all recommended changes. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
I'd like to, after our meeting the other night, for us to be in comparison and in competitive with the other towns. I see that we're keeping it at 15%, or reducing it to 15%, stage one deposit, where the other towns have 10%.
Some do,
Some do, but
some at 20.
yes, but the ones with Portugal Coal, is it, and CBS?
CBS is 20, I think.
So I guess in the middle, but if we are, I'm hearing it all the time about how we need to do things, I guess, a little bit better from a development perspective. I think that we should look at that. And the other question that I had the other night, I thought that it would be worthwhile to bring it forward, is what Flat Rock is doing, because I'm hearing all the time people bypass here and they go to Flat Rock because for different reasons, especially for development. So I'm asking, again, if that can be changed to 10%, and if we now know what Flat Rock is doing before I vote on this motion.
I can't speak to what Flat Rock does. I can't speak to any other towns, really. I did know what Portugal Coal St. Phillips did, and while it's written that they accept bonds, they never have. So the fact that it's written, in fact, that makes happens in practice, doesn't mean that a town will or won't. So, I mean, when we reviewed it, and I think even in conversations with council, this is what we essentially came back with, and we did agree that we would look further in terms of what that development bond looks like as well, so we get some further information to make sure that we are going to be covered off. And it's not my decision, it's everybody else's decision. I'm just speaking on my own side of things. I know from the concern around bonds, and personally I don't care what other towns do. I've had experience, not necessarily in the development side of things, but certainly in the call of bonds and the call of irrevocable letters of credits, and I know some of the issues. The issue with a bond is that it rests with a third party to decide whether or not the claim is good or not, whereas all others, we have it in our control. So I would certainly rather have it in our control than somebody else's control. But I think the reduction to 15% at this point in time, with some towns being 20 and some towns being 10, is fine from our perspective. I think we can go to 10 if everybody else decides to, but I swear.
Any other comment? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. We had quite a discussion about this last Monday night at Committee of the Whole, and I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that we had always taken collateral mortgages on properties, and that has been something that hasn't proved to be efficient, and it's cost time staff time, legal costs, a lot of issues that have been in that space. So the reason that we are considering making this change right now is to have a credible resource that we are able to access. So that's the reason why we're looking at, the current cash deposit, certified check, and irrevocable and automatically renewable letters of credit as means of securities. Thank you to the staff who did the look at the research and the comparisons around what other municipalities are doing. I think that the stage 1 15% right now is something that I have no problem supporting. I think that the reason why I'm saying that is because if something does go wrong, there are securities that are taken up front, is my understanding from stage 1 and stage 2, that the town would have in place to negotiate if there were any deficiencies. So my understanding of the intention of this motion as it comes forward now is to change how we do our business, to make sure that there's less staff time, less potential legal costs, still maintain security for the people that we serve in the municipality, and make sure that there is a welcoming environment for developers who want to come into our community, looking at having some cash flow in the beginning of the development work, in stage 1, to ensure their success in our community. So I think as an attraction strategy, I think as a new way of doing business and trying to find more lean, ways to move forward here, I think that after a very rigorous debate, I have no problem supporting this motion as is presented. I do think, though, if we're going to have a conversation about changing the percentage tonight, I think, again, back to the conversation that Councillor Pollard just brought up, if we're going to go back and look at the, potentially bringing bonds into this as a security, and the reason why we didn't put bonds in during that discussion was because we weren't entirely sure that it would be a security that we could draw on in the right way for people without having legal costs and time and all that stuff built in. So maybe the analysis that the Deputy Mayor is asking for the 10% and the impacts of what that may be could also be looked by committee at that time. And if it's found to be something that's beneficial that we could look at, maybe we could certainly look at that as an amendment. So I think those are the things that I would consider right now. But I have no problem supporting this motion as presented. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Your comment?
Yeah, I think last Monday night's committee of the whole, we spent 2 hours at this. We had a good, healthy discussion. We did the same thing at our committee meeting Wednesday. Had a good discussion, and I think this is a compromise right now. I know that you could juggle what numbers you want, but I think in comparison with other towns, we're in the same ballpark now, if this is passed.
Thank you. Your comment? Rhonda?
And I'm certainly just agree with everyone else too. It was a very good discussion at the last meeting, and it was certainly very informative for me because some of this is certainly new to me. But with the bond situation and with the feedback that was getting, information given, I'm in full agreement as it is now to not use the bond there because it could take a long time to get any movement on it for the town if it was ever needed. So the other ones are, to me, the best options. And in the sense of the 15%, I'm certainly in agreement with that too. I think it's on par with the anyone else around, and not that that makes a big difference, but it is making, we're making an effort here as a town to entice development and have people coming here. So I'd be in agreement with this motion.
All right, thank you. Then I'll call a question. Tony, you already spoke twice, so I'm not going to
Speak
go back to
twice?
you again. Yeah.
Bad.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And motion to accept December 4th, 2024 Torbay Environment Advisory Committee meeting minutes as tabled. So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Questions?
Comment. I just wanted to extend a thank you to Robbie Hicks and Denise Hodder, who are no longer on the committee. We did a thank you to Robbie, and very well deserved, a couple of meetings ago. But I know Denise as well. She was my proctor in Blackall 2 or 3 years ago. But she's certainly an engineer who knows her stuff, and to get people of that caliber in our community to volunteer their time and serve with this committee is certainly worth recognizing. So I just want to extend thank you to all members, but to Robbie and Denise as they move away from the committee at this point. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next one is renaming of Kennedy's Brook Drive to Ward Goss Drive. Further, the Premier Andrew Furey's letter to Torbay Council dated February 28th, 2025, requesting the change, requesting us to consider the change of Kennedy Brook Drive to, in honor of Ward Goss. For Ward's significant contributions to the province, dedication to local and provincial sports, excelling as a player, coach, and volunteer, with achievements in softball and hockey recognized throughout the town, province, and country. I think we're all pretty much in agreement and happy to put this motion forward. Motion to rename Kennedy's Brook Drive to Ward Goss Drive in honor and recognition of Ward Goss's long-standing contribution to Newfoundland and Labrador sport community, and for the town staff to undertake the necessary actions to facilitate this change. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
Might as well look
Go
over
ahead.
this way.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. No surprise. I think this is absolutely brilliant. Ward had a very successful sports career, and I knew Ward for many years. He served, breakfasts with us at the old community building there across from the church. He's coached many teams. He's done many things, and he's also sat here and given his time as a municipal councillor. He was very humble about the things that he had done. All the years that I'd known him, I knew he played hockey, I knew he played softball, but I didn't know the amount of his achievements until people started sharing the impact that Ward had. And it was very far and very wide. So I think this is absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that his family, every time they drive in and out of Torbay, or there's a sport event happening, at our co-owned facility, that people will drive by, they'll see his name, and they will remember his amazing contributions. So 110% support this. I think it's brilliant and very well deserved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Comment?
Yeah, I can't leave it. Again, we had a lot to say about this because of his sudden passing. But, I didn't, again, know as much about his personality and his great accomplishments in sports. I met him on the softball field because he was on the mound pitching and I was behind the plate. So, it was, but when he came to, or phoned me before this term and asked, if I would support him, we got together, no problem. And it's a pity he won't be here for the next term. Because his contribution was just starting to grow, and he was starting to mature as a good councillor. So, no, 100% in support.
Thank you. Other comment?
Same for me. It's funny because he sat there for the past 3.5 years, and it wasn't, again, until his passing that we found out so much about him. And even when we did the budget, he made the comment, like, Mary, this is what I thought council was going to be like. And, he stayed around and socialized and that with everyone the last number of meetings. And the biggest thing that I found out about him, and it wasn't until we had the reception, that he actually played the guitar and could sing. Like, how in the name of God was he able to keep that away from us? If I only had known that in itself. But anyway, I'm totally in favor of this, and still doesn't seem real that this has all happened since January. So, yeah, 100%, 110%, like Councillor Appleby said.
And I'll just echo what everyone has said around the table. Absolutely full agreement. And I too, it wasn't something that Ward had come into a room and start talking about his sports achievements and things like that. So just to hear what he had accomplished in those fields was spectacular, and it was an honour to have gotten to know him here in the room and work with him. So full agreement, yeah.
So before I throw it back to you, Tony, I'm just gonna briefly mention that this request did come from Prima Fury. He reached out to me, and I got a call from his office asking about renaming a road, and the conversation came around to that one. First it was Quigley's Lane. I said, well, we can't rename Quigley's Lane, there's too much history behind that. So I suggested that one, and I asked them to write the letter, and they did. And then we talked about it as council, and I wrote them a letter back saying, yes, that we're gonna be doing this. So when we do it, we will I already let them know that, we will let the Premier know. I already spoke to Ward's wife Karen about this as well, a couple of weeks ago, to let her know that this was gonna be happening, and she was very happy about it. So, it's a really good news story that, it's gonna be a fitting, memory for our colleague. So, back to you, Tony.
Mayor, did I
You
miss
mentioned the
the
other
part
towns,
where did you share about speaking to other municipalities? Because
Oh,
I
I already did
understand.
that. I emailed them.
But that's why I think it'd
Yeah.
be nice to share
Sorry.
that as well, because it's a co-owned facility, and I
Yes,
know that you had done that.
I
If you would-
emailed,
That's been
I
done.
emailed the other mayors of our surrounding towns, including Portrait Cove, St. Phillips, and let them know that we were gonna be doing this, as well as the arena management, because there's gonna have to be a address change and that kind of stuff. And I received lots of positive feedback there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
done.
All right, back to you, Councillor Pollard.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I echo everything everybody else said, obviously, and as I mentioned before, one thing that really stuck out to me about Ward was his support for all the children and folks and teenagers that he coached and their accomplishments, and suppose it was first, second, third place, and I admired that in Ward. And so let's get her done.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried, thank you.
Last motion to accept the Torbay 2025 permit listings for the week ending March 27th, 2025 as tabled. So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And one last thing from the report, actually, we just want to say that thanks to Julie and staff and for at least partially hosting the planners table here later last week. It was a good turnout, and we had a lot of planners from across the Avalon area anyway, and the presentation on the wetlands and the importance of wetlands and that by Ducks Unlimited. And certainly look forward to Ducks providing that information to other towns and following from our lead, I guess, in terms of recognizing the importance of that environmental aspect of everything we do. So in my report, Your Worship.
Okay,
Can I ask a question on that?
sure.
Would it be possible to reach out to them to see if we could maybe have that information shared in the package? I think it'd be really cool for residents as well to read and understand information that's shared about wetland protection and what we can do. I mean, I've looked at this across the country, and I've spent time in cities where they've had to artificially construct wetlands to deal with, animals that need a place to live and water runoff and those sorts of things. And I think that's something really important. I know, Councillor Tapper, you've been spearheading wetland development or protection for quite some time. So I think it would be something that'd be really good for residents to be aware of. So just want to put that out there. And also, I reached out to Julia and Sandy this weekend. If I could recognize the director for responding to my email on the weekend. I don't expect responses on the weekend, but thank you very much. It was very kind of you to do that. There were an awful lot of trucks going up and down the road to remove the ASR materials, and the director provided an update to me at the time. I'm just wondering if we could, for the council meeting, get a verbal update. Julie, if you don't mind, provide one for that, so that people know. And the last thing I want to say about that is, the question was asked, and I don't know, but I'll put it to you and committee can consider. The question was asked, could there be any airborne pollutants that could impact people in the area? We have the upper three-quarter, Pound Park facilities, the soccer and the softball and all that stuff will start kicking up soon. So the question was asked, and since you responded, could there be any impact for airborne pollution? And I wasn't sure. So I'll leave that one with you. You haven't got to touch that one tonight, but if you could just provide a little bit of an update for the public on what's happening, that'd be great. Thank you.
No, absolutely no problem. And there seems to be multiple sources wondering what's going on. So what I think is happening is that the materials that are being removed, they're being sifted in advance of being trucked. And the deadline, right now there's a deadline of March 31st, which is today. So the activity is probably prompted by the deadline and, the snow now being gone and them being able to go in and continuing moving the materials. The pool that there was is filled in, so that part is done, but there's still materials there that are being transported. So we now as a department, as well as the provincial Department of Government Services, they're taking the lead, but both the town and them kind of keep an eye on what's going on. So I anticipate that there will be an update from the company as well as from the province on the next steps, how far they've gotten. With regards to airborne particles, this stuff is really heavy and gets kind of waterlogged, so there's no, and it should be gone within now or whenever the province determines it has to be gone completely. But I don't think there's any risk to airborne particles. Like, it's heavy stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Administration, HR, Deputy Mayor.
We had our meeting on March 26th. Chief of Human Resources and our CAO and Councillor Manning were in attendance. The Housing Accelerating Fund staffing requirements, the Director of Planning and Development is currently in the process of composing a list of all the relevant job duties, details and responsibilities associated with each position so that the Chief Human Resources Officer can finalize the job description and job postings. The aim is to have job descriptions and job posting finalized in the very near future. Further update will be provided to all members of the council. So that's something that I know that we've had a few inquiries on. The 2025 student ambassador, that's in the works here. I don't think that there's anything. It's basically an update. The summer day camp postings are now closed and the response was extremely high this year. So I think that it's interesting, or it's good to note that only those that will get an interview will be contacted, because there's a lot of students that are looking and hearing and commenting on it. So if we could reiterate that to anyone that we know. Recreation Services part-time person. The job posting is now closed for that one as well. Heritage Coordinator and Museum, registered Torbay History House, Economic Development Tourism. The Heritage Coordinator and Museum register job posting is now closed, and the response was very positive as well for that one. Other items, that's basically ongoing, so if anybody's got any questions on that, can ask. The
On the
next
report?
meeting is on the 8th.
On the report in general?
Yeah, on the report.
No, I won't comment in general, and I apologize. It just happens to stick out in my mind when I'm looking at this, and we all do it. We're all guilty of it. And that's our lack of setting a time frame for things in terms, like we got here, very near future. And we see it all the times with consultants, sometime soon, or things of that nature. Can we do a better job of nailing down a time frame? At least we can revisit it at the end of next week and say, okay, we didn't meet it. Why didn't we meet it, and what makes it on it? Because that's actually one of my pet peeves. But we all do it, and it's in every committee meeting you'll see it. It will be sometime in the next couple of weeks.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if the Human Resources Director had been here tonight, I was going to ask for an update on anything that's in here, because in all,
That's my son. I just have to step
Oh.
in for a minute.
In all reports, I think that is very important to have a date, and instead of saying in the near future. So I think that, I'm glad that Councillor Pollard brought that up, because it's all over the place in all of our reports. And I really think that some of them, if I asked tonight if there was an update, there's probably an update, but we need to have the date put in there, so thanks for that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, corporate services, Councillor Pollard.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was a fairly short meeting this time round. I will not read out everything that's there in terms of payroll and accounts payable and the check register. There's only one motion here, and that's for invoices over $5,000 for council approval. And it's Receiver General of Canada payroll remittance in the amount of $49,760.86. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That
Your
it?
Worship.
All right.
It's
Thank
a
you.
quick meeting.
That was a good one, yeah.
All right, economic development, tourism, history and culture, Councillor Tepper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our committee met on Thursday, the 27th. Myself and Deputy Mayor and Director were there. Just a few things to highlight. The History House basement, the mold issue is still being pursued, and we're hoping to get that resolved ASAP. The Best of Torbay Awards nominations closed in all categories of multiple nominations. Event scheduled for April 27th, so you can note that in your calendar. The M&L Symposium, the town has been asked to present at the upcoming M&L Symposium on Rainbow Registered Accreditation, and I believe our director is going to head that one off, Mr. Murray. Regional Transportation awaiting confirmation from consultant on kickoff meeting. We'll schedule public consultations for May. And we're making some headway with the website and getting that updated, so that's ongoing. The Mannion project, our director has met with some IT specialists and looking at the website update for that one as well. Potential Irish delegation visit. There's a group, I'm involved with the Newfoundland Labrador Irish Connections. There's a group of 36 Irish people coming over in September, and we're hoping to host a day at least here in Torbay, which should be great. So I believe all the other, yeah, I won't mention the other ones. They're for your information. I do have some good news to report, which may surprise some people, but and I might get emotional about this one as well. If you recall, years ago, the town received a $75,000 donation for the History House, or for a museum at the time, which we held in our accounts for quite some time until we got the History House. Last year, our Torbay rowing team was looking for a sponsor, and again this year they've secured the same sponsor. But a gentleman by the name of Carl Galliana, he's an American. His mother was a former Bradbury from Torbay, so they got a history with the community, and they come back every year for a visit. So anyway, I met Carol actually when I was mayor, and became really good friends. I visited his mother, she's 95 now, in Fort Myers. So, but anyway, I got a message from Carl a few months ago. He indicated when I contacted him about the sponsorship for the rowing team, He indicated that he wanted to make a contribution to recognize the Torbay North fishermen. That's what he referred to anyway. So this has been on the go now, going back to March. On the 24th, after a month or two ago, Carol communicated with Kerry, our director, and I must say David, our corporate service director, has been involved with this as well. But we finally received a transaction, a bank transaction, obviously went between the two countries, US and Canada. There was some work to be done that way. So it was finally confirmed and received by the town. It was put in our bank account. So I'm glad to report that Mr. Galliana and his family donated the sum of $570,313.37 to our town. But I expected a donation, but when this number came along, it was obviously, So he's donating it to the History House, but there's other projects in the town associated with heritage or whatever. It's really now, the History House Advisory Committee is meeting on Wednesday night, so this will be discussed, and I guess between that committee and Economic Development, we'll report back and progressing. Again, this should involve everybody. It's a huge sum of money. We got to be careful what we do with it, because I'd say there could be more beyond that. So it's a great start and great news for the town.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
our second now big financial news in a week, so keep on. Yeah,
We know for sure we got this one, though.
Yeah.
it's in the bank.
It's in the bank.
in the bag.
Yeah.
But I gotta really thank those two guys back there, because it was complicated.
They put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, it was complicated to get it done, but, and they talked to Carol numerous times, but made it work. So, thank you very much.
And I think I'd just like to point out that I did email him and thank him personally for that contribution to the town. And I would like to point out that his mother, Teresa, every now and then, how last month, she sent me a box of oranges that get delivered here to the town, and I took them and shared them with the staff here, and
They were good.
they were good. And I was happy to get a box of oranges. So you can imagine how happy I am now.
But just to mention, Teresa is booked to come home at her normal time during the summer, probably June or July. And Carol, he's having some health issues, but he's hoping to get home with her, so we'll have a celebration there. when we
Yes,
get
absolutely.
All right, sounds good.
So I think that's it for me.
Okay, excellent.
Got a few questions, it's okay. Anna, congratulations. Congratulations, Councillor Tapper and David, on the great work to get such a significant contribution for
Thank you.
the municipality. Not every day a councillor can come in the chambers and say, well, I brought in $500,000, what do you think of that? So hats off to you. I think that's an amazing achievement, and thank you to the family for their donation. I think that, and I think, the conversations about how we could apply that money and what we could use it for. My recollection is that I think we had somewhere to the tune of $500,000 looking at in the budget for the conversation around the storage facility. So I don't know, but I'll put it out there for consideration. Maybe we'd be able to consider the idea, floating, you guys will decide what you come back with, but if there's $500,000 invested, and if we could have a $500,000 building that would be built with funds donated, we could do that in memory of the family that donated it, the same way that we were doing with the community center. The other question then would be, would there be an ability to find savings in the budget somewhere else that we could use in other ways. And the reason I'm asking that question, this is an exceptional time. It's an exceptional situation where the food bank, the food cupboard over there are steady about being challenged by what's going on. I don't know how, I'd leave it to the committees to think about it in deliberations and discussion, but could there be some way that we could look at helping families that are struggling in the community through the History House with this? I mean, I don't know, I'm just sharing ideas, brainstorming for consideration. But I think that, if we could get a $500,000 private donation, that could help support something like that in the community and have it potentially named after a family that's from here, which would be really great. Is there any way to give back to people so that they could help, figure out what they're doing? The taxes have gone up this year, groceries are going up, the cost of everything is going up. So I'll put it out there to be brainstorming to maybe something or not, but just put it out there for consideration. The other thing, I did read in here that we're talking about changing the name of the History House. When I was involved last term of council in creating the History House and all the work that we did to make that a reality, the reason we had the name museum in there was so that we could access funding that was available for museums only. So that was very deliberate in the naming of the History House, and I would caution council before we take the name museum out of it to ensure that we'd still be eligible for that museum funding. Because my recollection at that time, there was the museum in Mount Pearl, and this is the only one that I'm aware of that is operating year-round. And if we are going to have a museum that is operating year-round, any and every contribution that we can get financially, we should be looking for. So I just want to put that out for consideration in the discussions around name change. And the last thing I wanted to say is that if there are conversations again about sponsoring a Torbay rowing crew, which I think is a fabulous idea, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever, but I do think we need to make sure that we open that up and have.
We're not sponsoring it. This gentleman is sponsoring his own.
Right,
Yeah.
but we had this discussion last year about using the Torbay logo and the Torbay name and delineating the difference. If it is going to be a team that's sponsored by someone else, the use of the town Torbay logo and our stuff, we need to have that conversation. So if we're doing it for one, we have to do it for whoever wants to come to the table. We started that discussion last year. I'm not against any of it. I'm not trying to put roadblocks. I just want to make sure that we've got fair and equal access to everybody in the community. So I think it's worth revisiting that conversation, having that chat of if there is an external funding source, if you are using the town of Torbay logo or the name Torbay in that way, that we're just aware that there's not confusion, because I know there was confusion last year, and I think it's really important that we are fair in how we do it. I think it's $2,000 or $3,000. It's not a significant amount of money for the registration. Then you've got like the kits and all the ins and outs. But I just want to make sure that we're being open and transparent around that discussion. So it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely that we want to support that. I just want to make sure that we're clear and we have clear communication on it. That's all. Thank you.
One thing I will mention about the proposed name change of the museum. I had a discussion with some people from COA about potentially getting funding for our annex that we had planned for the History House that was the storage with other things attached to that. The problem with getting funding from COA was the history, or the museum name. So that came to a suggestion from me that I passed on to them. And I said, well, what if it was called a cultural center? They said, then it would fit under the funding. So that's kind of the precipice around this. It still has a museum aspect to it, it's just not in the name. So we'll still be able to avail of those other types of funding too as well.
Yep.
That was the reason around this.
Hold on, the mayor. My understanding, we just need to go back and look again, because, and listen, I'm not against changing the name at all. I just want to share. That was the reason that we went with museum. And at that time, to be able to access that funding, it had to be called museum. Now, if COA has funding on the table and there's an opportunity that makes sense, look, I'm open to all discussions and whatever benefits the community and the residents, by all means. I just wanted to share that before we looked at making a name change on the facility, that's all.
Yep, fair enough.
Thank you.
Could I just
Go ahead.
mention? I did mention to Mr. Galliana that NOAA had an annex line in our budget when our budget was passed, and this is why he's, putting forward his donation. Amongst other things, he said, heritage and that sort of thing, but that's, that's the bulk of it, I'm sure will be used. Now, again, our finance people here, they've looked at maybe using some of this money to apply for a COA money, to top it up, and, so that might, increase the amount substantially. So again, thanks, David, for doing that, but, it can lead to a lot of things. But we gotta be careful of what he agreed to. I'm sure if there's extra money there for the food bank or whatever, we'll see and explore it, but,
Oh, well, hold on. I'm not recommending that we take any of that money and put it towards that. What I was thinking is if the intention of the money was to be used something like the building that would have the name on it, leveraging the funds for a COA funding is brilliant. What I'm saying is if there's $500,000 in the budget that we had allocated that we don't need in that space right now, is there another
see what
way
you're
to
saying,
look
yeah.
at it? Yeah, so, but we'll see. I mean, it's all good news, and we'll see where things go from there. I was just brainstorming ideas, putting some out there for consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Hold on now. Gotta look this way. I have to say, don't think that you're getting away from it. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to have the minutes updated that Donna, because this is ongoing, I guess staff present, was also, Donna Norby was present at that meeting as well. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to Councillor Tapper for the work that he's involved with dealing with Carl Galliana. Got it right this time. And Mrs. Bradbury, and I don't know her last name, Krantz, okay, that this has been on the go for a long time. And also to David and Carrie, because this was very tangly in the beginning. We knew we were getting money, but because it was US to get it transferred over. With regards to some of this, NOAA had been dealing with them as well. And for any of our listeners tonight to think that we have this money, that I wanted to say that it was for a particular structure in mind when we couldn't get the funding last year. And again, there's been a lot of time and spent with researching and dealing with this suggested name change to History House and Cultural Centre, and that I guess we're ready to move on it. But as a big thanks, and the other big part of this, I think that considering that the Bradburys related where we have the monument, that was something else that we're looking at getting done at this time. But tonight, we need to keep in mind for everyone, this is the same as the news that we got last week for the funding that from Joanne Thompson, that we haven't got together to even talk about any of this yet. And even though we're looking at a structure, it's probably knowing that Public Works probably are going to have, so it's different people that'll end up being involved when we're talking about the structure and what we're actually talking about. So a big thank you to everyone, and it's so nice after much discussion when you see something like this coming aboard. So again, Councillor Tapper, this wouldn't be happening only for your input and what you've been involved in that, so thank you.
Good. All right, thank you.
One comment, Your Worship. I'm assuming there's a motion coming back for to change the name at some point in time. This is just for discussion purposes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
It
the
has to go to the advisory committee for
committee
approval.
look at it on Wednesday night.
Thank you.
All right. Infrastructure, Public Works, Councillor Appleby.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, myself, Councillor Manning, and Director Winter met on Tuesday, the 25th. They were in the boardroom, and I joined them via Zoom for that meeting. We had conversations about the trail development. The notes are in the package. We talked about the Canada Community Building Fund projects. The update is there. New projects for 2025 and projects that are being carried forward from 2024. Just going to keep going. The wetland sewer study project. The Department of Infrastructure and Public Works is speaking with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to look at the best way forward. For the multi-year capital work projects, we have a motion here for the Common Generator Project. The motion is the motion to award the Torbay Common Generator Project number 17-MYCW-22-000066 to the lowest bidder, Cal Technical Services, in the amount of $329,671.56, HST included. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments?
I'm assuming that this money is covered off by the multi-year capital works. Is that the amount that we had left once all the other projects were complete?
Yeah, so as per the second bullet there, we're still $25,000 below the budget amount, the funding amount.
Thanks, Brian, for showing me that.
Subtly.
I read the motion, I didn't read line one. I should know better. Yes, yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Tony, you can be sure I asked the question. Brian comes into committee meetings at times and he's like, I know you're going to ask. So thank you, Brian, for having that in there. And thanks for asking, Tony. It's important. All right, so back to the package. So the stormwater mitigation information is here, and the tender recommendation letter is provided. The link is there for anybody that wants to see it. Let's see if it'll work this way. Okay. Water and wastewater projects. So there's an update here on that. Keep going. The land acquisition piece is in here. Great Pond Water Study. I wanted to take a minute to touch on this at this point. I didn't attend the announcement when it happened. As everybody here knows, I'm an employee of the Government of Canada. I work with the Canadian Coast Guard under the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And our current minister is our MP, Joanne Thompson. So I didn't know if it would be appropriate for me to participate at that time. And there was also mention of a DFO fish ladder it's a fish ladder that will be a part of the development, but DFO would have a part in that. So I stayed away and I didn't share anything on social media for that reason. But the letter that we have here for the approval in principle came from a different department, and I spoke with Sandy today to make sure that there was no concern about conflict of interest for me to speak to this tonight. And I wanted to just share, when I came to sit at this table 7.5 years ago, there were two things that I really wanted to see done. I wanted to see the work done to get our water supply sorted out, and I wanted to address safety concerns here at the Marine Drive and Torbay Road intersection. And I remember Deputy Mayor driving the crosswalk at that intersection at that time after we did the work with the Juniper Ridge crosswalk. And this one here, for me, when I first moved to Torbay, I lived in a home that was on the water supply. And that's why I swore I was going to sit at council and work towards making this happen. For the last 7.5 years, I have watched council and staff tirelessly work towards making these things happen. There have been meeting after meeting, hour after hour, consultation after consultation. And some of them I have missed because I've had work conflicts and I couldn't participate. But I really wanted to make sure that it was shared tonight, how proud I am of the work that's been done, how much this means for a municipality, for development, for us to be able to grow this community in a responsible way. This is really great news. And for the safety of people who are impacted by what's happening in Pond Ridge. And I have friends who live out there. My children live half time, in that space. this is huge. So to our MP, to our staff, to our council, thank you for everything that you've done here. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Our wastewater testing continues, the online fleet tracking. So there's a conversation that we're having here. Brian is going to bring this, my understanding, Brian, to the next committee meeting.
Yeah.
And what we're thinking about is looking at having a tracking system, so it will be in place for the, for like the plows and that sort of thing. So if you're in the community and a storm's on the go and you want to know, is there a plow in your area? Is it coming soon? That's what this conversation's about. So stay tuned. We're going to see where this goes and how much it's going to cost and what the return on investment
I
looks
thought
like.
we had that. We had it a few years ago where,
We got AVL, but we don't have the online tracking. So is it-
We got it internally,
oh, internally?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
This is
okay,
gonna become, on our website for
okay.
plows.
yeah.
All right. I thought that we had it, but we just didn't have it hooked up. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I asked that question, Deputy Mayor, because I asked the same question, actually, so what's different about this? But the internal tracking is for us to know where they to, how
Yeah.
fast are they driving, and if a resident calls and says, hold on now, that vehicle's driving too fast in my area, or it's somewhere it shouldn't be, then we can go, hey, what's going on with that? But this actually gives residents the ability to go in and understand, was my street paved, you know, when were they in there, or are they coming, and what does that look like? So, you know, being more transparent, engage with the community, letting them see what's going on, very cool to explore, so we'll see where that goes. Review of departmental policies, more motions. So we've adopted the boil order and use of a source of water bylaw. We've adopted the traffic bylaw. Tonight, we're gonna adopt 3 more. And let's get started with the motions. So the first one is, motion that the town of Torbay pursuant to sections 8 and 284 of the Towns and Local Service District Act, adopt the snow clearing bylaw 2025 as presented. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed,
That's right.
carried.
Did you have any comments, Councillor Ballard?
No, I second, I should have let Rhonda second because she was.
Stepping on my toes, you know.
That's what I just said.
Just gotta get on the ball.
He's excited about that
Time to get it out
policy.
ahead of him.
Yeah. All right, next one. You ready, Councillor Manning? I got you. Motion that the town of Torbay pursuant to section 8 of the Towns and Local Service District Act adopt the water and sewer breakage and blockage bylaw 2025 as presented. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried.
All right, and the last one. Motion that the town of Torbay pursuant to section 8 of the Towns and Local Service District Act adopt the waste collection bylaw 2025 as presented. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, I just want to make it clear for anybody who might be watching, these are not new bylaws, just nothing has changed. It's just that with the new Local Service Districts Act, they had to be called bylaws, they cannot be called regulations like they were before, so that's, as we go forward throughout the next year or so, you'll see a bunch of these coming forward. If there are changes, they will be listed in whatever it is that's there, so. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for sharing that clarification. Appreciate that. All right, so back to the package. Dam safety regulations. The director noted that he attended a meeting on some new dam safety regulations that are coming into effect, so he's going to provide information to us on that as it becomes available. But that will be related to the dam that we have at North Pond. MEO reports and patrols. So we had a conversation about this. I'm going to spend a minute here. Committee discussed the roles and the reports. The director noted that the time logs are provided weekly and incident reports are provided as required. The incident reports are reviewed and forwarded to the appropriate director for review and follow-up. Going forward, the Department of Infrastructure and Public Works will provide a monthly update on municipal enforcement officer activities more often if required. So the discussion at this, when we were at committee, was around what are they doing? What does that look like? How are we best serving the residents of Torbay with municipal enforcement officers? And again, if we go back to when I was first elected, I recall calling now Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, when he was Director of Planning, saying, Brian, I'm concerned there's needles, hypodermic needles, down by Jackburn, up behind where I live on the Bali line, where the sports complex is. There were reports of drug deals that were happening in different spaces around the community. We were concerned as a council. We brought in the municipal enforcement officers, and that stuff has seemed to been impacted. The complaints that I would get when I was first here on council compared to the complaints that I get now about mischievous activities have far declined. I actually asked the director, and he said reports for things like, dangerous things like hypodermic needles are next to, just not something that we experience here in the community anymore. So I think it's really important to talk about the good work that happens with the municipal enforcement officers. We also looked at the reports that happened when I served at the M&L board. We used to get reports from the RCMP about crime and those sorts of things. You see them sometimes in the reports that come forward with the joint councils. So one of the things that we talked about at committee was to see if Brian is receiving the reports from the municipal enforcement officers, could we take that information and ask the department to put that together and put it in the package as a report. So right now, what this bullet is about is saying, hey, we've got these people, they're working for us, they're out making sure that our streets are safe, they're, delivering things that need to be, appropriately delivered to certain people, those things. So, and as recently as a couple weeks ago, there was a burnt out car up behind where we live. And I reached out to CAO, who contacted Brian and said, hey, can we look into this? So can we get some extra patrols down here? So I think that it'll be really helpful to have those reports added to the package, and then we and the public can have a better understanding of exactly what they're coming across, what the reports are, what work they're doing, and what the benefit is to the community. So that's what that discussion,
So that was my question. So there, all those reports, like the log reports, basically, they'll be provided now in the council package.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a report based on what they're getting back to summarize the activity on a monthly basis at this point, see how that goes. If we need more, we'll have that conversation. I know that the director and his team are extremely busy year-round, but we are going to start with that and see how it goes, and then this is a new thing, so we'll work with, what we have. But that's exactly the idea, Deputy Mayor, to take, people are seeing us invest money in this, asking, what's the benefit? What are we getting here? I mean, I shared some of the ones that I've noticed in the last 7.5 years that I've been at this table, but I think it would be really cool for the director to be able to take the information that's in those reports and share it here so the public can see and council can see, and we can have those conversations.
So I brought that up at the last meeting about getting that report shared back with council again.
Yep, so we're looking at formatting that, and maybe even we can see about taking it and putting somebody in our social media as well. Sharon, did you know? Or that kind of
Absolutely.
stuff. So lots of cool things to come in that space, but we're having conversations about putting that together. The asset management and infrastructure mapping overview and update. So the technologists will be at the next meeting, and the flow meter numbers are about the same. The recycling education, so just making sure that, again, the public's aware we are not paying for that. That is paid for in external dollars. Traffic calming is something that we're definitely going to be looking at and working on with the weather getting nicer and people being out and soon enough kids out of school, and of course the action tracking items for infrastructure and public works. So our next committee meeting is April the 8th. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Two questions, really. One, on recycling education, does that read properly the final portion of this project? 2 new steered signs, which will be placed in the spring?
Should be street signs.
Shared?
Street.
Street. Okay, street signs.
Thanks for pointing that out.
There you go, that's all right. I owed you one for that $25,000. Yes. On the water treatment for North Band, can I just get a concise snapshot of where we are with that? We got something in the hands of TI. We saying the testing is still going to be happening in the spring. The spring is now sprung, I guess, and we anticipate construction being in the fall. So are those deadlines still realistic? I mean, this has been going on for a long time now, and I'm not saying that negative, I'm just saying I'd like to know what that actually means, because when I was inquired by residents, I couldn't really provide an answer, because there's the parcel of land that we haven't yet acquired, and then there was a small piece of land that was coming from the province, and there was another small piece of land or something that we needed to put the test modules on or something along those lines. So, Brian, can you?
Yeah, certainly. Sometime this year, no, so I did speak with TI today, and they got their comments back on the RFP. So we're waiting on Water Resources for their comments. So I'm expecting theirs probably will be later this week, early next week, because all Water Resources were in Gander last week for a water conference, which happens every year this time. So shortly after that, the RFP should be released. So once the RFP is released, that's when the technology testing will take place. So I think we're still on track for May month for that testing. That's where we're looking at, and should be still on track to see some construction in the fall.
And are all the land acquisitions taken care of, Brian?
So the land acquisition, like I said, one part is coming from the province. I haven't heard anything back from them recently, but I will check with them tomorrow. And the second part is, once we determine the technology and the space requirements during the design build process, then we determine how much land we're actually purchasing off the private property owner. So that won't be done until once the design starts. So that'll be later in the probably in August month, I would think.
Okay, so our decision was to purchase not that full piece of property, but the property is going to reflect what comes back from the manufacturing footprint or the construction footprint?
From the design, yeah, that's correct.
Thanks, Mark.
Good?
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Recreation, community services. It's just a report here, right? There's no,
Yeah, that's just an update, because for reasons beyond our control, we were unable to meet this week.
all right.
So,
Anything in there you want to highlight?
no, it's pretty much all updates there, to guides and summer camp registration. Yes, I'm going to, the summer camp registration, I want to point this out. The programs, they open on Wednesday, May the 7th at 10 a.m. So residents are reminded to have their e-services account ready for use as the program prior to the registration day. So just anyone that's looking at trying to register for that, ensure that your e-services is up and running the way it should. And if you have any questions, reach out to or email for assistance at the Commons, and they'll be only too happy to help. And that is important, because that's going to, it'll be seconds, and the spaces will be gone.
So a question on that, if you
Yeah.
do, for some reason, have people show up at the Common that haven't got an account or don't know how to go about getting an account, because we've all been in a situation where, even for some, not to say necessary, but some low-income families, or for whatever reason, they don't have a computer or their phone is missing, is there going to be any availability at the Common for somebody to come in if they are in a situation where they can't get online?
Absolutely.
It's a really good question, and I really don't have the answer to that. I don't know how things were done last year from that perspective. I really don't know, so.
Councillor Manning, we had that conversation at committee. My understanding was that staff would be there at the entrance to help anybody who comes in for that, to make sure that was in place.
And, yeah, and I was gonna go on to say, I'd be awfully surprised if staff wasn't gonna be there to help anyone that comes into the desk to say, I can't get in there, can you help me? And it's gonna be like everything, like I said a few minutes ago about timing.
But if they, what I'm saying, if they do not have connection or whatever, if they don't have a phone or if they don't have a computer, all I'm asking the question, will there be somebody, and what I'm hearing from you, there will be.
Yes.
Okay.
Always, and there's, my understanding is there's always staff there in the front.
Yeah, there will be. We
But
had
is,
that- sorry.
anyway.
They will
No,
be ready.
I just want to make sure that if, for some reason, an individual can't register on e-services,
Yeah.
will there be an alternate arrangement for them if they don't have e-services?
If they're there at the Commons, there'll be staff there to help them go through the process.
No, that's not what I want to
No?
hear. Not to go through the process. Will they be able to be registered if they're not on e-services? So, I'm asking if
Okay.
somebody is there, if they can go in, which has been done in the past.
Okay.
Go in on e-services and
And
register
register
them. If
for
for
them,
some
help
reason,
them, yes.
somebody
Yes.
don't have,
Yes,
to
so
be able
there's
to
no
do it.
reason why that would
yes,
be changed.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other than that, certainly the federal election is April the 28th, so the director is working with elections officers. And if anyone has any questions, certainly ask, and I'll work on getting an answer for you.
Okay.
Just a
Anybody
reminder,
got-
the age-friendly surveys there too.
Okay,
for folks to
yes,
do.
yes. That, yeah, it's still open to residents, yeah, and encourage everyone to complete it, the age-friendly survey. And every time I'm not big on Facebook, but it's something I keep passing forward and on, so, and reposting, so if everyone could do that, that'd be
Can
great.
somebody pass it along, I guess, to Jen, because if nobody's available, I will do it, because the reason why this came up is we talked about this before, and there were supposed to be some hard copies left down at the Common for the seniors groups, and I'm looking at the active 50-plus and the 50-plus and the card players that are there Tuesday and Wednesday nights. So it's no point unless they're made aware that the hard copy surveys are there for
Yeah.
them to take, because again, not everybody can go in, and I've had people who called me and said, look, I can't get in, I can't do this. So I understand in talking with the CAO last week that this would be. So somebody really needs to contact, and again, I don't mind doing it, contact the executive of those groups and let them know that hard copies are going to be available. Because in our committee meeting last week with Economic Development or Communications, there was a little discussion about who's supposed to make those copies available.
You're talking about the age-friendly one,
The
right? Yeah,
age-friendly
They were
one.
sent over.
Yeah, because it comes
That's done.
down apparently that the Common, once they're down there, that they can print them
Yeah, they
and
will-
not necessarily fall back on the communications person
No,
for dropping them off.
PDFs were sent to them, so that's
So they
fine.
can print them
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Okay, and have something out there to say that these forms are now available, did you know, or bring it into those,
Yes.
those groups and let them know. And that's my thing, that needs to be done. So if we can follow up maybe where Jen is not here, to make sure that they're available down there, especially for the next few nights.
They were sent, yeah.
Because if not, if those come back and they're only filled out by people online, then that eliminates the analysis, but for people who are not online, so. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sandy, is it possible to meet with the directors of, with both Jen and Carrie, to have a conversation about the delineation of those tasks? My understanding and the conversations that we've had at committee have always been that the information is shared with the department, and then my understanding is that the communication staff is responsible for that work.
And that's
If-
that's exactly what happened there.
Right.
That did
and-
work in this.
And so what I'm hearing in this meeting tonight is, can someone go back and tell Jen that we're going to ask the recreation staff now to print it and have it available?
That's
there?
already been done.
Right, but there's two things being asked here. One is that the communication staff do the communication staff's work, and then the second request is that the recreation department do some of that work as well. So I think it's very important to have the communication amongst departments, so that there's clear delineation of who's doing what.
Yeah, I
so
believe
that-
that does exist, but I will follow up again.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we just make sure it's clarified, because our understanding at committee is that the printing of that stuff, the communications part of it is happening under the communications staff person. So just want to make sure that it's uber clear who's responsible for what, the staff have that direction. That would be, that'd be really helpful if we can do that. Thank
And
you.
I second what Councillor Appleby said, because that's clearly what's happening, is that there's no communication on who's responsible for what, and one thinks the other. So that's exactly that
Deputy
came
Mayor,
up
that's
at
not
our
what I
meeting
said.
on
That
Thursday.
is nowhere near what I said.
Well-
I did not say that
Okay,
there is
all
no
right.
communication between the departments.
Well, they don't know, well, to
Let-
get the
let me-
duties
Excuse
straight.
me,
I'd
Okay,
like
Okay,
to
can we
to
move
be
on
very
from this
clear.
now?
No, Mayor. The Deputy Mayor
I
just
understand what you're
said
saying.
that I said something I didn't say. I want to clarify for the record, please, that what I asked was that CAO, who tells staff how to do their work, that's his job, speaks with both of his directors to delineate the responsibilities so that there is no confusion, because I'm hearing at this table, the Deputy Mayor ask
is
that the
confusion.
Director of Recreation be informed of what needs to happen, and the communication staff, as I understand, are expected to do this, and the person who's responsible for ensuring that communication, and the CAO just confirmed that communication is ongoing, which is my understanding, that the delineation happens, and that's the case. What the Deputy Mayor said was, she agreed with me, and that her understanding was that there wasn't communication, and that's not what I said. So I just want to make sure that's clear for the record.
well, now, do I get to go back, or will I just leave it as it is?
you,
I'll leave it as, it. Okay,
here's
okay,
what
all
Sandy,
right,
here's
okay.
what Sandy said, okay? The communication was done on.
Yes.
It was emailed to the staff at the Common. Staff at the Common will print off these things as they need them. Not Cameron go over all the time, every day, to see if there's things there and then bring them over. That's the waste of time.
Yes.
So that the surveys are done up, they're laid on the counter for people to do. When they get down low, the staff at the Common will print off a few more, right? That's what I'm understanding?
Absolutely.
There you go.
I just asked to clarify what I
Okay.
said, that's all.
Fair enough.
That was the only point.
But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands, both of you guys, and that that's what he said is happening.
As long as there's going to be copies over there for people to get,
Right.
I'm happy,
All right.
because that hasn't happened.
As long as you're happy, I'm happy.
Okay, go.
All right.
Mayor,
Moving
there's
on.
just one more thing to touch on, the Safe Action Community Planning. It references in here that there's going to be a meeting with the Holy Trinity High School to look at working in that space, and I just think it's important to touch on that. Recently, especially with the elections, there's a lot of negative things that are floating around the community. I saw a post from Dale Colburn, actually, Mayor of St. Leonard Gricket, on Facebook the other day, saying it's unfortunate that, you know, the way communication's happening around some of these political campaigns, it's people going at people instead of, hey, here's what I'm gonna do. Where's the civility in this? And, you know, it seems that there's an awful lot more these days of the incivility and the intolerance and the unkind actions. And it's my understanding that even at Holy Trinity High School recently, there was an incident around that. So I think I just wanted to touch on the fact that we as a community are working in this space, that we're having that conversations, that we are very much supporting inclusive environments and making sure that there are safe spaces for all of our residents. And I think that work is really important. I just want to tip my hat to, you know, Jen and the work that she's doing to get those conversations started, and also to the principal, Mr. Trevor Taylor, in that space as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Liaison committees, Atlantic mayors have no report. Intergovernmental affairs, I think we've talked about that. Jack Byrne, no comment, no update. Nordics Avalon Joint Council, Deputy Mayor?
Next meeting is next week.
Okay, yeah, I received a package for that today. Excuse me. World of Lancashire. I don't think that I got anything to report.
Mayor, we
yes.
had asked for the information for the town of Torbay, similar to what happens with the Northeast Avalon Joint Councils,
Right.
to see if some of those reports could be shared. Has there been any movement on that, or is there any further discussion to
Have we
see if
heard
that's
anything back on
a
that?
possibility? I don't know if it is.
RNC, you mean,
but-
or Northeast Avalon?
They're talking about UMC.
No, we had a conversation about
RNC.
speaking with the RNC as part of that communication, to have some of the reports come back for what's happening in Torbay, like how many calls, how many speeding tickets.
Yeah, we can go with that. The RNC actually has been meeting with all of the regional Killick Coast managers,
Yeah,
so we have an ongoing dialogue with them. So it's just a matter of me reaching out
yeah.
for that,
Because we had talked about that a while back.
to come
and-
back to the council.
What we
Yeah.
talked about was similar to the report that comes in for the joint councils.
Yep.
But, like what's happening, so people will be aware, it's in line with the conversation we just had with the municipal enforcement officers.
I'll reach out on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Torbay Volunteer Fire Department. Okay, Urban Municipalities Committee. Councillor Tapper.
Fresh off the road with the mayor. We were out in Marystown the weekend. Must say it was a very, very positive meeting. Well chaired again. I congratulated him after, but it was well attended by
Yeah, I think we had 40 some odd.
40 some odd towns.
participants.
Yeah, from right across, right to Labrador. So, like I say, I just touch base on a few things. I got the agenda here. Economic stability for the Bjorn Peninsula. We heard from the mayor of Marystown, Brian Keating, who's an icon in his own right. But no, he gave a good presentation on the positives and the negatives that are happening on the Bjorn Peninsula. Obviously, they're impacted especially by the fishery, lower populations, lower school attendance, that sort of thing. So that's a real concern. And unfortunately, they got to bring that under control. We had exploring rural economies, a discussion on labor market productivity and rural regional development capacity. So we had Minister Fred Hutton there from the provincial government, and Robert Greenwood, Deputy Minister of Rural and Regional Development Engagement. They did a presentation which I think there were many questions that came out of that, especially with the minister there. It was a very interesting discussion. We had investment attraction by Deidre Murphy, manager of investment attraction, and Trina Keogh Hackett, economic development officer. There was another one on housing approvals, manufactured homes, and an interesting one. I think Mayor mentioned this one before. Tomorrow's Towns. It starts today. It was a presentation by Rudy Norman, a real comedian in his own right, but he's Tomorrow's Towns project coordinator. So if you want to just check that on the website, it's tomorrowstowns.ca. So like I say, with I was at this type of meeting a couple of years ago, and it was completely different. This one was completely positive, and I must say, interesting. Everybody seemed to be in good spirits as to what was happening in their community. So, I was glad I attended, and of course, coming and going to Marystown, we never stopped talking about things. So, it was great to be with the mayor. So that's it. Any questions?
Did you say that Mayor Keating was a icon in his own mind?
Don't tell him that. But if you want to visit an interesting place, Smuggler's Cove, they brought us out there on Saturday evening, I think it was. It was my first time there, but what an interesting
spot, isn't
spot.
it?
Beautiful spot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get my way down to St. Pierre this summer, and myself and Joanne drop in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
If I could, the town of Bjorn, of course, is where I grew up. And Smuggler's Cove is a business that was co-owned by Mike Brennan and Tom Hollett. And I think there were some other people there, but
Mike is cousins of Ed.
he is. They are cousins. I know, I'm well aware.
He
And
was there, we met him. Yeah.
and Mike is a fine fella. And his nephew, Paddy Kavanagh, who is also, him and his wife Alison are also part of the ownership and running that facility, went to school with me from grade 1 to grade 12. So I know Smuggler's Cove well. The brisket is delicious, and would encourage anybody who wants to go down and check out the Bjorn Peninsula to do so. It's a lovely spot. Thank you for your kind words. And Mayor Brian Keating is a fine feller, if you ask me. I'm more than happy to share that. He's a brilliant guy. I've got a lot of respect for Brian.
Indeed he
Thank
is.
you. Yeah.
He's a good friend to me. Thank
Mayor,
you,
oh, just
Councillor
one more,
Temple.
just
Yeah.
one more I got to. And to the mayor of Bjorn, Mr. Kevin Mundrican, who's not only the mayor, but also my mother's partner and a family member to me. Hats off to him, because he's a fine feller too. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so the next UMC meeting will be at the symposium in May. And then following that, in August, it's gonna be in Port Basque, and then in, when's convention? November, it'll be in Hornbrook. So, keep those in mind. All right, new business, Councillor Tapper.
Just want to mention a couple of things. Congratulations to Mr. Paul Toomey. He's been recognized by the, and I'm not sure if it's the Softball Hall of Fame or the Newfoundland Labrador Sports Hall of Fame, but he's going to be inducted in one of those bodies in sometime in May. So congratulations to Paul.
Good for him.
Yeah. And a thank you to the 3 grade 3 teachers who invited me to attend a school assembly a couple of weeks ago. And there's 3 grades in one in the library. And I'm sure I had 1,000 questions thrown at me. But it was like being a poppy to 40 people. So thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank the teachers for that.
All right. Pass. Councillor Appleby.
Thank you, Mayor. So the congratulations was the congratulations to staff and council for all the work that everyone has put into, again, securing the funding for the Great Water Project, Great Pond Water Project. So just wanted to reiterate that congratulations. And I wanted to send out a thank you, just a share. This weekend on Saturday, I received a call from a municipal councillor saying, "Is your LinkedIn working all right? You reached out to me on that?" No, boy, I did not. And then the calls and the messages started coming in, and I learned very quickly that my LinkedIn account was hacked over the weekend. But I thought it was really interesting that a lot of municipal leaders took the time to reach out to me, residents as well, but they took the time to reach out to me and say, "Did you contact me on LinkedIn?" It wasn't, they knew right away when this hacking thing happened that it wasn't me, and they took the time to reach out and let me know. So it just builds to show the relationship and the rapport that happens when we all get together in these different spaces, like you just talked about Marystown, where we get to know each other, strike up those friendships, and people have your back. So thank you to everybody who reached out to me this past weekend and said, "Hey Trina, is there an issue?" There was an issue, and it's been reported to the RNC now for hacking the account. So just want to put the thank yous to the people who made sure they had my back and let me know what was happening. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I'd just like to say thank you to the staff that organized the training session that we had last week. It was an 8-hour Indigenous Cultural Diversity Training Program put off by the First Light with Kevin Coffey, I think his name was.
Coffee.
And it was 8 hours. It was amazing, the information that came out of there, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long while in the past, was on my list, but if anybody gets the opportunity to participate in it, is well worth what.
Yeah, they're doing
could
another
go
session
on.
in April,
Yeah.
and it was,
It was,
I gotta say,
yeah,
I
it was
really enjoyed it.
eye-opening for me.
I
yeah.
really enjoyed it, yeah.
So thank you to all involved with, I'm not sure if it was Jane or,
Jane organized.
yeah, that took the lead in it, but it was, well,
It's good.
did a great job.
All right, round of me. So I just want to say, first of all, I want to congratulate one of our young curlers here, Nicholas Codner, and his mixed doubles partner, Dominique Vivier, I think the name is correct. They won the Under 21 World Mixed Doubles Qualifier for Canada, and they are going to represent Canada at the World Championships, May 6th to the 11th in Edmonton. So congratulations, Nicholas and Dominique, and good luck in May when you go and compete. Nicholas is certainly for his young age, He's almost a legend in the curling world for us, for Torbay. You know, going from the youngest player ever to throw a rock at the Briar to, you know, he's after having a lot of success, and it's really nice to see. So congratulations to him. And I want to say, as usual, I want to say thank you to staff, council, and residents, and whoever else involved in making our town, I think, that the best that it can be, and a great place to live. Is it perfect? Not perfect, but we're working on it. So, you know, and we'll continue to work on it, and our staff will continue to work on it, the council will work on it, and I know our residents are always working on and having ideas how to make things better. And with that, I would entertain, our next public council meeting is scheduled to take place Monday, April 14th, 2025, 6:30, right here in our chambers in the town of Torbay. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Thank you very much.
No Q&A, was there? Nothing came in?
Online.
Sandy, is it possible to get the information for the April session? I had to work and
before the infrastructure goes.